The front door was locked, but the chain was hanging loose. I hadn't touched it. I was babysitting in a safe neighborhood, and the kids were already asleep upstairs. Then I heard a slow scrape from the hallway outside their rooms. Subscribe for more recovered statements.
Recovered horror files. Statement transcript. Case file. Location: suburban single-family residence. Year: 2016. Incident type: unauthorized entry/hidden intruder. Case status: open.
This is a recovered statement from late 2016. I was 19, doing babysitting jobs around my neighborhood. That night I was watching two kids in a 2-story house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. Their parents were at a dinner event about half an hour away. The house had a finished basement with an exterior door under the back deck. The dad mentioned it before leaving. He said it stayed locked. By around 7, both kids were upstairs in the living room with me. Normal night. TV on, kitchen lights on, nothing unusual. About 20 minutes in, the younger one said she heard the basement door open. I told her it was probably the furnace. I'd been in that house before. It made random noises. Still, I walked down the short hallway to check. The basement door was closed. The handle didn't move. I stood there for a few seconds. Quiet. I went back upstairs. A little later, I went down again to grab drinks from the kitchen. The hallway light near the basement was on. I didn't remember turning it on. I shut it off and checked the door again. Still closed. Around 8, the older kid went upstairs to the bathroom. From the top of the stairs, he asked why the basement light was on. I looked down. It was. I felt that shift in my stomach where something stops feeling random. I told him to stay upstairs. I opened the basement door a few inches and looked down the stairs. The basement lights were on. I was sure I'd turned them off. I walked down slowly. The basement was quiet. The furnace wasn't running. The TV upstairs was low, but I could still hear it faintly. Near the bottom of the stairs, I noticed dirt on the concrete floor. Not a lot, just faint marks leading from the exterior door toward the center of the room. The kids had been upstairs the entire time. I walked to the exterior basement door. The deadbolt was unlocked. I stared at it for a second. The dad had specifically mentioned it earlier. I locked it and pushed on it twice to make sure it caught. Then I went back upstairs and closed the interior basement door firmly. I flipped the small latch above it. About 10 minutes later, I heard a soft click from the hallway. Not loud, just metal touching metal. I stepped out of the living room and looked down the hall. The basement door was open about an inch. The latch was still turned. I didn't open it again. I backed up and told both kids to go into the upstairs bathroom and lock the door. I told them it was a game. Whoever stayed quiet the longest won. They moved fast. I called 911 from the hallway. I told the dispatcher I was babysitting and someone might be inside the house. She asked if I saw them. I said no, but the basement door had opened on its own after being latched. She told me to get somewhere secure. I moved halfway up the stairs and stayed low. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard a step. It wasn't loud, just weight shifting on tile. The house felt smaller. Another step, slow, controlled. I couldn't see the hallway from where I was, but I saw a shadow move along the wall near the living room entrance. The dispatcher asked if the kids were safe. I said yes, locked upstairs. I heard the refrigerator kick on in the kitchen. The normal hum sounded too loud. Then footsteps crossed the living room carpet. They stopped near the bottom of the stairs. One stair creaked, then nothing. The silence lasted long enough that I thought maybe they'd left. Then I heard movement again, heading back toward the basement hall. A few seconds later, I heard the basement door swing open fully, then a heavier sound, like the exterior door closing. Cold air moved through the hallway, After that, it went quiet. Police arrived within minutes. They cleared the basement first. The exterior door frame had fresh damage near the lock, like it had been forced earlier and never fully secured. The deadbolt worked, but the frame was weak. There were muddy shoe prints near the furnace that didn't match mine. Officers told the parents there had been break-ins in the area using basement entries under decks. No one was caught that night. The parents added motion lights and reinforced the door. I never went back. Whoever it was had already been inside before I heard anything.
Recovered horror files. Statement transcript. Case file. Location: suburban townhouse complex. Year: 2021. Incident type: targeted harassment/unlawful approach. Case status: charges filed.
This is a recovered statement from early 2021. I was 23 and still taking babysitting jobs through family referrals. That night I was watching two kids in a townhouse. Quiet row of identical units, shared driveway, small fenced backyard. The parents were out at dinner about 20 minutes away. Both kids were asleep by around 8:30. The parents mentioned the neighbor on the right side before leaving. Said he was friendly, helped bring in packages sometimes. I'd seen him once when I arrived, mid-40s, lived alone. Around 9, someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow knocks. I checked the peephole. It was him. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. He smiled and said the parents asked him to check something in the garage. Said there might be a breaker issue. I told him they hadn't mentioned that. He said they texted him last minute. I told him I'd confirm first. He didn't argue, just stood there. I closed the door and texted the mom. No reply. I called. It rang out. When I looked through the peephole again, he was still on the porch, looking at his phone. Then he looked up at the door. A few minutes later, he stepped off the porch. I assumed he went home. Then I heard the side gate open. Metal hinge. Slow. The side yard led directly to the backyard sliding door. I turned off the living room lights and moved into the kitchen so I could see outside without being seen. He walked along the fence line instead of returning to his house. He stopped at the sliding door. The handle moved once. Not forceful, just testing. I locked it again even though I knew it was already locked. My phone buzzed. The mom texted back. "We didn't send anyone." My stomach tightened. A soft knock hit the glass. Not loud, just fingertips. He said my name through the door. Calm voice. I never told him my name. I stepped into the pantry and called 911. I whispered the address. I said the neighbor was trying doors. The dispatcher asked if he forced entry. I said not yet. She told me to stay hidden and keep the line open. My phone battery was low. I hadn't charged it since earlier that day. The sliding door handle moved again. Slower this time. Then I heard pressure against the glass, like someone leaning in to look through. The kids were asleep upstairs. I heard the side gate again. Then footsteps moved toward the front of the house. The front door handle turned. Once, then again. The chain rattled. He said, "I know you're in there." Same calm tone. I stayed quiet. The dispatcher asked if he was still attempting entry. I said yes. The handle turned harder this time. The door shifted slightly against the chain. I could hear him breathing through the wood. Then it stopped. Headlights flashed through the front window. Police. The door handle went still. I heard fast footsteps on the driveway. Officers knocked and identified themselves. They detained him a few houses down. When the parents came home, police asked them questions about the neighbor. That's when the mom mentioned he had asked earlier that week what nights they usually had a babysitter. He told officers he was just checking on things. They found gloves in his jacket pocket. There were smudge marks on the sliding glass door. He was charged with attempted unlawful entry and harassment. I gave a formal statement the next day. The parents moved later that year. He still lived there when I drove past once. He knew exactly when I'd be alone in that house.
Recovered horror files. Statement transcript. Case file. Location: urban apartment building. Year: 2013. Incident type: suspicious presence / attempted entry. Case status: investigation ongoing.
This is a recovered statement from 2013. I was 18 and taking babysitting jobs through an online community board. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an older brick building. Narrow hallway, 1 stairwell, no elevator. The mom worked night shifts at a hospital and needed coverage a few evenings a week. 1 kid, 7 years old, bed by 9. I got there around 6:30. The building felt normal, a little worn down but quiet. The main entrance downstairs was supposed to lock automatically. Before I even arrived, I had 2 missed calls from a blocked number. I ignored them. By around 9:15, the kid was asleep. I stayed in the living room with the TV low. Close to 10, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number, no voicemail. I muted my phone. About half an hour later, the apartment intercom buzzed. It was loud in the quiet room. I picked it up and said hello. Nothing, just faint static. I hung up. A few minutes later, it buzzed again, longer this time. I didn't answer. The kid's bedroom was down a short hallway past the bathroom. The front door was near the kitchen. From the couch, I could see both. Around 11, the kid came out of her room. She said someone had walked past her door earlier. I asked what she meant. She said she heard slow steps in the hallway outside her room, but she thought it was me. I hadn't moved from the couch. I checked the apartment door. The deadbolt was locked. I looked through the peephole. The stairwell light was off. It was usually left on all night. I couldn't see much, just darkness. Not long after, the intercom buzzed again. This time I unplugged it from the wall. A few seconds later, I heard something closer, a faint shift of weight outside the door, like someone adjusting their stance. I stepped toward the peephole again. There was a shape near the edge of the frame, not centered, just a dark outline where there shouldn't have been one. I stayed still. The door handle moved, slow, not shaking, just testing the latch. I stepped back and called 911. I told them someone was trying the handle. I gave the address. They asked if the door was secure. I said yes, but someone was outside. While I was on the phone, the handle turned again. The deadbolt held. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way. I watched the shadow under the door shift. Then I heard something else. The main building door downstairs closing. That meant whoever was outside had already been inside the building. A few seconds later, the stairwell light flicked on. Through the peephole, I saw a man's shoulder as he moved down the stairs. I never saw his face. The handle stopped moving. Footsteps faded. Police arrived shortly after. They checked the building entrance. The main door had been propped open with a folded piece of cardboard wedged near the latch. The landlord said the security camera in the lobby hadn't been recording for weeks. There were no marks on the apartment door, no forced entry. Officers asked if anyone knew I was babysitting there. I told them I only messaged the mom through the listing board and texted her directly about that night. 2 days later, I got another blocked call. I didn't answer. The mom replaced the building door latch and added a second deadbolt to her apartment. No one was identified. I stopped taking apartment jobs after that. Someone knew I was there that night.